Great, and we are live right now. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks so much for checking out my channel. Thanks so very much for checking out this video. I'm trying to do this a little bit more deliberately. I've been live streaming every Monday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So I'm trying to do that in a more regular way. But also what I'm going to do with this video is a little bit different. We're going to spend about 20 minutes or so focusing on Cajek, his values, his experience, the things that he's writing, the things he does outside of this conversation, and then we'll bring in other people. We had a lot of people on the panel last week, so I think what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to say you're on the honor system, but be on the panel for try to be around 25, 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll try and cycle people through, and that way we can get more people on. So I'll probably say that a few times, but I am really interested to know in the chat, and I'd love your feedback on things that we can do better. So if there's something that I can do better to keep these live streams organized, let me know. This is like the fourth time I've done this, and the first few times were kind of just by myself. So I'm really glad for those of you who've tuned in the last few times. I'm glad for the people who participated in the conversation. And I just want to underscore that I'm happy to do things a little differently or a little better and follow your advice. We have some topics for conversation, but let's spend the first few minutes talking with Cajek. And we started off in very contrary positions, and there was, in the YouTube comment section of some of my videos, it gets kind of acrimonious. I try to be kind of a good sport and be really patient and not be too snarky with people. Sometimes I do a pretty good job of that, sometimes not so great. But I've been really impressed that Cajek and I have, in a live streaming format, had really great conversations. So I invited Cajek to kind of come on the channel, and we'll do a bit of an introduction talking about Cajek, talking about his work, talking about his writing, talking about his theological experience. So, and I'll start with very broad questions, and I'll hone into very specific questions later. But this is meant to be like sort of informal, conversational, and then we'll get into like sort of some topics of debate that I know people like to tune in for because they're a little bit juicier. But let's start off with some informal topics. Cajek, thanks for joining me. Thanks for hopping on here.
Thank you, Tavo. Thank you.
Yeah, and I may cut you off a couple times to answer some questions. So,
sure.
So TNC Apologetics asks, how long are you going to be streaming tonight? And I think we will be at least 2 hours. So TNC, if you want to join later, that's great. And yeah, whatever you'd like is super. Oh, and Eastern Thomas says, I will try to join later. Fantastic channel, Eastern Thomas. And also TNC Apologetics, also super, super fantastic channel. Definitely go subscribe to both of those individuals. And all right, well, let's turn our focus now to Cajek. And thanks for letting me answer those questions, Cajek. Let's get to your background. So just tell us whatever you like about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm Cajek. Pronouns are he, him, and I would generally say I'm an atheist, or at least a non-Christian. But really, I'm an agnostic, depending on your definition. So whenever a conversation about God comes up, I want to know what you think God is so a definition of God without inserting God in the definition. So that's my philosophical stance. I'm a philosophy major. I went into experimental psychology, and I work in research and data management. And I write a fantasy anthro series, or I have my first rough draft done, and it deals a lot with gods running around in a fantasy setting, and it kind of explores my relationship to religion. I have a bad relationship with religion, and we can maybe explore that if it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good starting place. So what were you raised with? When did you, I assume you're raised in a religion?
No. My parents,
okay.
Yeah, no, my parents were atheist, apatheist, or atheist, as in apatheist, as in apathetic.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
No, they were pretty anti-religious, in fact. So that's my background.
No, that's interesting. So what did you? So you were raised without any religion, but then you had some bad experience with religion.
Not personally bad, but it does seem like society is being turned by religion into it's being driven down a bad path, partly or mostly because of religion. So I just have a bad view of religion, in
And
my opinion.
did you have a specific experience that sort of galvanized that view, or was it just a set of experiences?
Weirdly, because I was a philosophy major, I have a lot of fun with philosophy of religion. I think it's a very interesting topic, but I haven't done a whole lot of study on philosophy of religion until the last few years. I was trained in the philosophy of ethics and morality.
Okay, and then what brought you into, was it the sort of, I mean, as I've talked about before on this channel briefly, there is a lot of extrication of what our theological beliefs are in this country with what our political agendas are. So
Yes.
is that kind of what you're referring to when you say that you had some bad experiences?
Yeah, yeah. Evangelical Christianity is a hard pass for me, and it's mostly all there's a lot of theistic stuff, a lot of reasoning that falls flat, in my opinion, and then the evangelical.
And give us examples. What's like some theistic stuff or some reasoning that falls flat in your mind?
Well, it's always okay. So it's always easier to be the skeptic in any position. I believe it's always easier to say I'm not buying it on any debate. So whenever you take a position, you have to be very careful. And I think saying that a God exists is there's just no there's always it's always God of the gaps. It just seems to always be God of the gaps. We don't know where the universe came from, therefore God. And the atheist says, the theist says, I don't know, therefore God. And the atheist says, I don't know, therefore I don't know. And it's just a much stronger, easier position to defend. I'm agnostic, so it depends on how you define God.
And
But
just
if you're
just to,
defining
just to clarify, are you saying agnostic or are you saying agnostic?
agnostic,
You're agnostic. Okay. Why don't you tell people what that means? Because the first time you said it, I thought you said agnostic, and then I said I think you're saying agnostic. But go on.
right, and what it is it depends on how you define God. At the beginning of a debate, or it's not a debate, it's a conversation. I would like to hear Tavo's definition of God, if he's inclined. That when it's his turn to pontificate about what the word God means without using the word God. So last time I asked this question, a lot of people said some version of I define God as the Christian God, which is a circular definition. And what I would like is what you picture a God, and then we can start from there. And it does seem like the evangelical. So back to the original point, was the evangelical Christianity seems completely intellectually just nothing there. And then they also, on top of that, are currently fascists. It's difficult. So maybe we don't need to talk about them. But Christianity as a whole has been taken over by the evangelical part of Christianity, which is exhausting and boring in a way. But we could talk about it. But when I say agnostic, I mean I want to define what we're talking about first. Whenever you enter a debate, you should define the terms. When you say, does God exist? What do you define as God? Unless you're saying, oh, I think it's the Christian God. And then, I would, then maybe the conversation could take a turn into, well, okay, I guess I know what you're talking about. And we can go down the list of what that God is. But that's what I mean by agnostic. I hope I explained that.
Sure, sure. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 21st century apologetics to the stage. But just so, in case you didn't hear James, what we're doing is we're kind of like opening up with a bit of just a general chat with Cajek, and then we'll open it up to like a more of a dialectical conversation after that. So in the meantime, people can ask their questions in the chat. We can ask questions of Cajek. I know we have some other Christians who I really admire who are going to be hopping on. And what I'm going to try to do all right, I'm going to add Michael to the stage also, and just running the risk of repeating too much information. the first few minutes of this conversation are sort of designed to be focused on Cajek. We're going to sort of talk with him a little bit, and then what I'd like to do is so that we give other people a chance to join the conversation.
Can I say something?
Uh,
I'd just like to give Cajek all the rope he can have to hang himself. So go ahead.
Well, the point, so the point of this is to like just kind of like have a bit of a conversation with Cajek and let Cajek kind of express his viewpoints. But this is not meant to be like, Cajek, tell me what you think so I can use it against you later. This is definitely meant to be just, let's converse, let's have a conversation, and then we'll get into like sort of more dialectical phase where we actually are debating. Now, the other thing that I want to do is we had kind of more people joining than we had room for last time. So I think what I'd like to do this time is let's like continue the conversation with Cajek, and then every 20 or 30 minutes we'll sort of have people cycle out, not including these first few minutes, because again, this is just kind of but feel free to chime in if you have questions.
Hey, if you want me to cycle out, bud, just tell me. I'll be glad to leave and let somebody else jump in. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, let's go back to Cajek for a little while, but you can stay on, and then we'll get. I think we're going to get into like some lively dialectical sort of points of departure and points of argumentation later on in the conversation. But all right, so we were talking about agnosticism. We're talking about atheism. There are different definitions for atheism in the literature. There's sort of open atheism. There's closed atheism, and closed atheism is more on the side of the spectrum where you're like, I know that there is no God. But it sounds like, Cajek, like you are more in the category of open atheism, if you're even in that sort of umbrella term of atheism.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say that that something is or is not real. It's the same like people who don't believe in leprechauns. Why isn't there a name for them? And there is a name for people who don't believe in God. And basically, what I would say is atheism is not a position. Atheism is the rejection of a position. And I would say I'm probably more open, depending on how you define God. And it has to be. I'm not going to tell you how I would define God, because that's more fun. But I would say that remember that basically it's atheism is not a position. It's not a worldview. It is a rejection of a position. And the position that I'm rejecting is that today is that there is a Christian God in the way that I understand it. Now, well, I think if I could characterize some like more loose, James, I love you.
No, you already started off wrong.
More.
You want me to tell you why? I'll tell you why. Go ahead.
James, hold on. There are different characterizations of the Christian God, more metaphorical, more concrete, and I reject kind of the concrete Christian God, but also I think that the Christian God would be as it is in the Bible is a weird. It doesn't seem to have any existential part to it that seems like it is an existent being. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
We do have a really great question in the chat. That's not a question on the list for today, but let's tackle that one. But first, let's spend a few more minutes asking Cajek, because I want to get to another thing that we talked about briefly before we went live, which is your fictional writing.
I really want to say something about what Cajek just said.
Okay, go ahead, James. Yeah.
Because I grew up in a Appalachian community where, there was a whole lot of where people believed in leprechauns, all kinds of different stuff. That is totally where someone believes in leprechauns, and whether they believe in a one theistic being, or whether they believe in the Bible itself. Those are very separate. I know they seem to blend, but they don't. I've lived in communities where where these things actually coexist.
James,
And no, it's not.
All I was saying, I was using the examples of leprechauns and unicorns and God as an example that they are unfalsifiable beliefs. They are completely they can't be studied, they can't be reconciled. They can disappear and vanish whenever you want. They can create universes, but then they're gone. They can, and they are all the reason I pointed that out.
No, they don't do all that stuff. Different types of beings have different types of powers. See, you're conflating a lot of stuff. You're acting like a leprechaun is a god. No, nobody. There was a lot of people in my Appalachian community that believed in leprechauns. Nobody believed they were gods.
I didn't say that. I said that they were unfalsifiable.
Well, I mean, that's a really good point. I did want to get to some of your fictional writing, Cajek, and good reminder from Voyage Apologetics to like and share. I think Michael also chimed in on some stuff and was saying some stuff when we got cut off. So, Michael, I will come back to you as well. We'll come back to James. We'll pick it up right here. But Cajek, before we get too far down this road, why don't you tell us a little bit about your fictional work, your fictional writing, and we'll get into that. And then I feel like you have a challenge on the table, which is can any of us define God? So we can get to that in just a few minutes. Let's talk about your fiction. Then we'll do this question, which I think is kind of an interesting question, and then we'll go back to your question of defining God after that. But good reminder, like and share. If you haven't clicked like button on this video, please do that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. That'd be super helpful. But all right, Cajek, let's talk briefly about your fictional writing, because I want people to. And at some point, you're going to give me the link, and I'll put it in the chat, and I'll also put it in the video description if people want to check that out.
Sure. I'm not a published author of fiction. I am published in a few very small scientific papers back when I was getting my master's. But it's a fantasy anthropomorphic. So think of kind of Zootopia, kind of Game of Thrones, kind of Lord of the Rings, all together. And it has a lot to do with religion. So the gods are more like the Greek pantheon, where they are arguing with each other all the time. And they interact with mortals in the way that they are characters. So what I'm trying to do is have a conversation about what religion is, because the gods are real. They are real in your face. And I'm not saying that, God is not real here or anything like that. I'm saying in my story, the gods are in your face, trying their best, but they have limited powers, mostly around communication and specific magical things. So it's a very limited view of what an interesting fictional god is. I'm trying to relate it back to the context of this discussion. But it's a fantasy noir kind of mystery, and it's called The Violet Mist. There's nowhere, you can't read it anywhere right now because it's in the first draft. But hit me up if you want to, and I'll put my thing here in the studio.
I'll say absolutely cool. I wish I could read it. There's no. I mean, if somebody's writing something, and if somebody wants to critique that, like it's some type of, like you're doing some type of philosophical work, or just kill it, right? Maybe we just should read your stuff because you're another person, and you got some good stuff that I would like to read, because I'd like to hear what you got to say.
Thank you, James. So veilwinter.com is my website, but it doesn't have any of the Violet Mist. But if you wanted to be a reader of mine, sure. And Cajek at veilwinter.com is where you could, and it's like, I don't know who it will appeal to. So I'm open to whoever wants to be a reader, including Tavo, James, whoever, if it's your kind of thing. It has a very little, you're going to find that the gods are just real. There aren't even any atheists in my world. So it's not a super deep theistic digression or anything. But I put all the info for Tavo in there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm curious to chew on that, and the reason why I wanted to talk about that is actually rather specific, which is that we tend to like sort of talk with each other in these sort of online two-dimensional formats, and then sort of label each other on one side of the spectrum, right? You say, "Oh, you're a theist, you're a Christian, you're an atheist," and really that is just a single dimension of what all of us are, right? We're all like very complicated people, like. I might be a poet, I might be a musician, I might be, a senator. Like, so we each have our own like dimensions. So I guess that's another reason why I wanted to bring that up. Well, we do have kind of a fun question, which might be a good way to kick off the conversation. I'll invite each of the people on the panel now to sort of weigh in on this question. What religion would you pick if you weren't Christian? I think that's a good question.
Can I say Baha'i?
Baha'i is a beautiful religion. I myself has read the Kitab-i Aqdas. Do you want to expound on that and say what your reasoning is?
So I define God as something worthy of worship, and that's it. That's the end of my definition. I wanted to be mysterious about it, but and it's something worthy of worship. Now you can add all the other stuff: omnipotent, which is problematic, and omniscient, which is problematic, and omnipresent, which is weird. And then the more you add to it, the weirder and harder it gets to pin. But God also has to exist for you to worship it. So it has to be something worthy of worship and exist. And I'll stop there for now. I'm going to let that. But Baha'i is what I understand my closest philosophical viewpoint to be, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but
have you read the Kitab-i Aqdas?
No.
It's a very proscriptive religion. It's not just like sort of here's some philosophy, but it does. I think it's a beautiful religion. I would encourage anyone watching this to read the Kitab-i Aqdas. I think it's an interesting read. Michael, do you want to take a crack at answering this? Let's let Michael on to answer this. And you're muted, Michael. So I don't know if you're muted.
Yes. I wanted to be muted to be respectful to the other people. Yes, I would say probably two religions. I guess one would be Judaism, because you could be atheist and Jewish, and then I think maybe Buddhism, because again that's a non-theistic religion. So I mean I love the idea of being very careful about not killing other beings, non-human beings. I love that. And then with Judaism, I guess it'd be more of a community, especially like Passover, sitting around with family and sharing a meal and sharing stories. I would say that would be my two religions.
Some noble choices, some good choices, some interesting reasons for picking them. James, let's go to you.
I would say without a doubt, but it's not really a religion, but I would say Taoism, because that's where I cut my wisdom teeth, where I was like 14, 15, 16 years old. I started reading the Tao Te Ching and the Chuang Tzu, and that really like changed my because I grew up in a Pentecostal dispensational environment, and I mean those texts, when I started reading them, they really like they turned me upside down. And I mean there's a lot of other details I could go through with my life, where I encountered a kung fu master that was actually from China, that was actually a descendant of the white eyebrow system and all that stuff. But that's kind of beside the point. It's just like I mean I'll tell you, it's like I think about that. The one that stands out to my mind is that a house has four walls and a roof, but it's the windows and doors that makes it useful. That totally turned my thinking inside out. I don't know if that does that for y'all or not, and I can explain why it did for me, but that totally turned my thinking about everything inside out.
Well, those are interesting answers. If you're just joining the chat, just a reminder, you can ask us any questions. The sort of purpose, the overarching purpose of this series of live streaming is for us to take on your hardest questions. And there are people on the panel who are probably going to agree with the premise of a lot of the questions that you're going to ask. All right. Well, so I'll take a crack at answering the question. I think Jainism is probably the religion that I would pick if I had to pick any other religion. Now, I think some of our answers to this question have been sort of a little bit opacified through the window of something called philosophical laundering. So a lot of ancient theological traditions have gradually become less theological and less theistic and turned into philosophy. Like Confucianism is the prototypical example. It actually started off as a religion. Confucianism was a religion, as was Buddhism. There's a lot of very dense theology of Buddhism. In fact, a lot of Buddhist writings are very very explicitly justify what's called just murder. In fact, the Dalai Lama said that in some situations it's okay to murder somebody. So I think I personally like Jainism the most. Manilal Parekh is one of my favorite Jain thinkers. I think he's within the last 100 years or so. He actually converted to Christianity, and it's kind of an interesting story, but Jainism, I think, is the philosophy that is the most abhorrent, to the most refractory and abhorrent towards doing any harm to the universe. I think Jainism is arguably the most beautiful religion. I think the reason why Jainism doesn't work as a major world religion is because it doesn't scale up. And one of the reasons why it doesn't scale up is actually really fascinating. It's because to live the Jain ideal, to live, as close to the Jain value system as you can, you really have to, you can't wear shoes. You essentially can't, you can't have any clothing. You really can't, sit anywhere. You have to have, like, your possessions have to be extremely few. You can't do any damage to any living thing. And depending on what you think about Jainism, you may expropriate that definition to even like tiny microbial life. So like if you wear shoes and you walk down the street, you're already violating the Jain ideal. So I think the ideal is really interesting. I think one of the reasons why Manilal Parekh switched from Jainism to Christianity is because he was like, you can't live that way. You can't live without doing any harm. It just doesn't work for society. So what attracted him to Christianity is that it brought a reconciliation for the harm that we do, saying the way to live isn't by avoiding harm, it's by reconciling it, by acknowledging the harm, and then asking for forgiveness for it. Just sort of an interesting topic, that question. All right. Well, the next question on the table, I feel like, is Cajek's question. And as
can I say something about that?
Go ahead, James. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you're zeroing in on exactly what Gandhi was talking about with Jainism, because he was a Jainist, but his number one, well, I mean, I don't really know how to say this, but his number one, his ace coon boom, was actually a Christian, and they talked about this between each other all the time. And he was saying, well, Gandhi, how are you gonna live in this? And that's where Gandhi came to his thing, where his major statement, where he said, I love their Christ, but I do not like their Christian who has this boot on the neck of 200-300 million Asiatics. I mean, it was the Gandhi saw the Jainist position in Jesus of Nazareth, and that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, interesting answers. We do have another question in the chat, which I'll answer, and then we'll get to Cajek's question, which is define God. This maybe is a dovetail into that. Sad Saint asked the question, what is a religion? I may mute you for, well, I guess it's okay. James, if I mute you, just wave your hands if you got something to say, because there's sometimes some background noise that I know that comes from the place.
That's fine. I understand. That's fine.
Anyone want to take this question? What is a religion?
Can I take a stab at it?
Yeah, sure. Feel free.
I think it's a system. I think it's mostly like an institution or a system. And in the West, because in the West, it really is like an institution if you're, it's now, I wanted to kind of contrast it with spirituality. Because if you're not in a religion and you're just if you're spiritually a Christian, then you worship at home, and I would not say that your religion is Christian, because you're doing it in the weird non-Western, weird in quotes, non-Western way. And I know religion is much broader than this, but I kind of wanted to put it in a place where it's more systematic and rigid, and where you are taught by someone how to interpret your holy book. That's how I conceive of it.
Okay. Anyone else want to take a stab at this? What is a religion? And then we'll do your question, because I think it's a good one, Cajek.
Thank you. Yeah.
Michael, you want to answer this, or James?
Yeah, I would say for most people, it's a worldview. I mean, there's different scholastics that got different opinions on this. Like Cajek, he's got his opinion on this. Everybody's going to have one. But for the average person, it's a worldview. My religion is the way I look at the world. And I mean, I'm all the time going between scholastics and the person on the street, because I live on the street. So I'm all the time going between scholastics and the person on the street. And when the person on the street says, "This is my religion," and then when I talk to them, they're basically saying, "This is my worldview." They're not defining no dogmas. They're not defining anything else. So it's kind of loose. I mean, there's two different ways you can go in it. You can define it as a scholastic religion, or you can define it as what the person on the street means by "this is my religion."
Interesting idea. Yeah. There's a little bit heterogeneous. Michael, do you want to take a crack at this? Oh,
Yeah,
by the way, before you answer this, let me just give a shout out to Modern Atheism. Dr. Ryan Mullins, he had on recently. It was a very cool talk. I agree. The video that I'm going to watch tonight after we get done here is Modern Atheism's take on the debate between Alex O'Connor and Trent from Council of Trent. So check out Modern Atheism's channel. It's really great. Yeah. If yes, what do you think of that? Hopefully we'll get to that, Modern Atheism. But let's give Michael a chance to answer. And shout out to Modern Atheism. Go check out his channel. He's got a great video on the Alex O'Connor and Trent Horn debate. So let me hide that for now. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so I think simply religion is a set of cultic practices. There can be beliefs attached, depending on the religion, but normally I think it would be, a membership to a worship center, whether it's a church, synagogue, or temple, or mosque, and a set of practices, and then it's cultural, so set of family values, a set of family practices. And then I think that religion also is, and this, I'm contradicting myself a little bit because then it goes into belief, is this idea that what you do here on earth will then affect a cosmic realm.
I'm sorry, Mike. I wanted to piggyback off what James was saying. I did not include worldview in that because I wanted to give it a little bit more space. A little bit more space. You might not have a worldview attached to your religion. It just might be a place that you go to once a week. So that's all I was saying.
Shout out to Christian Guitar 206. I appreciate your comments on my channel. We'll hopefully get back to that a little bit later. Let's go to James, and then I'll give a shot at answering the question as well.
No, I don't really agree with that, and and the reason that I don't is the extensive journey that I've had with Native Americans communities, and they have different worldviews and different religions relating to those worldviews. and there's the religion itself is a symbolic reflection of what the worldview is. For example, like in Christianity, we have the Eucharist, for example. Okay, that's a symbolic reflect. That is a religious reflection of the of Jesus dying on the cross. But it's not Jesus died on the cross. Jesus died on the cross has goes into all kinds of philosophical and theological explanations and stuff. And if we're not careful, we can confuse those with the Eucharist. And on the other hand, we can. I got to be careful about this. Well, really, I don't. Screw it. We can confuse the Eucharist with the philosophical and the theological implications of the act. But the religious act is the thing that we do. All right, and I've seen this a lot of times. For example, in Santa Muerta, in the Southwest, where they enact different stuff that y'all would not even not want to think about, different things to you would call it satanic magic stuff in order to do stuff, and this is part of their religion because it's the religious act. All right, what do they actually think about the universe? But hell, a lot of them are Catholic. They think they're rebelling against Catholicism while they're performing these religious acts. There's it ain't clear cut between what people think is religious and what people think are spiritual. So what I would say is that the religious acts are those things that people think are legally, spiritually legally, if you can get what I'm saying here, are spiritually legally binding. There are things that if they do these things, the spirits are going to say these things, we're going to hold to them and we're going to enforce them, whether they're good spirits or bad spirits. Kind of like just the same way if I did some type of legal or illegal regular act, the police they're gonna police those things. So religious acts are things that the spiritual beings are going to police, and on the other hand, there are a different set of acts, which is what people actually believe philosophically or something like that, and that's just the way people look at it on the street. I mean, I don't know if that's the academic way of saying it. I don't know if you agree with, but the majority of people on the street, that's the way they look at the difference between religion and spirituality.
Well, I agree. I agree with some things that have been said. I'm going to disagree with other things that have been said in my own definition, and we'll wrap this up because I do want to get to Cajek's question next, and there's also a few questions in the queue that we can get to, which I think are kind of interesting. But I think religion is it's a set of beliefs, practices, and values, but it's different for each person, right? So,
Iris is going to bring out a couple more sandwiches unless you're sandwiched out.
Oh, all right. Let me sort of mute that because I think we're getting some information on what James is having for dinner, which is fine. Okay. All right. Well, so I think it's a set of beliefs and practices and values, and there's a community component of it. But I think different people take that in different ways. So for some people, religion might be much more heavily about what their beliefs are. For other people, religion is much more infused with what are their practices, what are they actually doing to enact their religion, to embody their religious beliefs. For other people, I think it's about moral beliefs, and some people believe in a very prescriptive morality, and and for them, religion is all about their moral prescription. And for other people, religion is really about their identity and their communal identity. So I think it can be different things for different people. I think that's That's an interesting question. Let's get to Cajek's question, which is, can any of us define God? I'm going to go ahead and start with Michael and ask Michael for a definition. I know that might be fraught because Michael, you're the one, you're probably the most stridently atheistic out of anyone on the panel. But what do you think about that, Michael? So, do you have a definition for God?
I do. Now, I would have to say that I think that God. I'm sorry, I'm also with my dog right now. I think that God is a concept, it's an idea to explain the unexplained of a people group at a particular time frame. That's what I think the ancient Greeks, Babylonians, Romans, these were gods, these were concepts to try to understand nature. I think as time went on, when you brought up philosophy, as philosophy merged with religion, with Christianity, and Christianity borrowed the Platonic idea of the highest God, the unmovable mover, like the henotheism, I think as we learn more, God became more remote and more far away. So it was a concept where we didn't need a God that could explain nature. But I still think that even in the modern times, I still think that's what it is. God is an idea. And I also think that God is a category and it's a spectrum. So you can have your highest God, and then you could have like your leprechauns, right? You could have your fairies, right? You can have your genies or your jinn or your angels. And so it's a whole spectrum of God. And then I don't think there's actually a monotheism, because I do think that most people believe in a variety of divine beings, but they don't want to call it gods, because culturally, Christianity, Islam, Judaism wants to be monotheistic. So they change the definition of God to fit the highest God, and then they name lower level gods demons or Satan or angels.
Well, that's an interesting definition. Cajek, I'm going to ask you, does that meet your criteria for what a definition of God is? Because a lot of the words in that definition were self-referential back to the word God. So that was the first criteria that you gave. You said, you can't say God in your definition. So Cajek.
Right. It was more of a cultural definition. I definitely think that that's how God is used. I think that God is used as an explanation for things that we don't understand. Like, for example, how was the universe created? I don't know, God. And that's kind of how God is used. God is a continual God of the gaps. Now, my definition gets around all that, and you can say it's a very sneaky, boring. You could say it's a boring definition, or you could say that it's kind of a sneaky definition. It's just a thing that is worthy of worship. Now, notice I'm saying worthy. It has to present itself to us as a thing worthy of worship. Now, I like Mike's definition, and it is a very, like, it's just a cultural concept. You could say that and be like, it's just a cultural concept. However, you're doing a disservice to atheism, because then if it's just a cultural concept, then it is kind of easier to throw away. Now, I mean, that's just how I was hearing Mike. I might be misrepresenting him.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michael. Please.
No, yes, I do think it's a cultural concept. I do think it's an idea, and I also think it's a category, because if we want to, for example, if Christianity wants to call itself monotheistic, and you know what, let's put the Trinity aside and let's just say monotheism, right? Then we have to use, in my mind, a standard definition that would include the Greek and Roman gods. So the Greek and Roman gods, it's a spectrum. Not all gods have the same powers. Not all gods have the same strengths, right? So it's like, okay, if those are gods, so for example, if Athens has a patron god, right? And then today, Athens has a patron saint. Then the saint most likely is a god, a lower level god, but we just renamed it saint because we don't want to call it a god. So there's that aspect. And then I think that it's just, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Mike. Can I say something controversial? I don't think the Greek gods were gods. I just think that they used the word God because they didn't know what they were doing. And that's the word God has been used in ways that I think is just like, these things are just very powerful jerks. They're not gods. They're not worthy of worship. And so
larger versions of Tavo, essentially.
A Tavoism. Yes. I as a Tavoist.
All right, James liked my joke, at least. That's good.
No, yeah. I totally see why my question got a little garbled, is because the word God has been used in kind of bad, kind of lame ways where these super powerful beings were called God. They're not God. I also don't think that the Christian God would be a God. It's just super powerful. Or deism. I don't think deism works. It's just a thing that created the universe. Why would I, oh, well, whoop-de-doo. You want me to clap like a seal for you created the universe? Whoop-de-doo. I didn't ask for that. So the word God, how it should be defined, not how it's culturally been used. Maybe that's how I should have phrased the question. Because I totally agree with Mike on how it was culturally used as this. I don't know what that sun thing in the sky is. That must be God. I don't know where the Nile, that's a god too, So yeah.
Well, so just a quick follow-up question. Do you not prefer Mike? Like, would you rather Michael? Like,
it's fine. You can call me Mike. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
So, I want to communicate a bit of a danger that I think we're in our territory, which is that we tend to anthropomorphize God a lot, right? So we tend to really personify God into a human form, having a personality, being like very personally agentic. And I think personally that can be a little bit flawed. I think relating to God that way is sometimes helpful, but I think it can be flawed to go too far down that path. Now, I know, James, I know you're chomping on at the bit, but let me do a quick round of answering this question, then we'll get to James, because I know James has some stuff to say. Yeah, I guess my point is, I think both people on the religious side of the spectrum and on the very atheistic side of the spectrum go a little bit too far down the road of anthropomorphizing God. So to me, God is more inextricably woven into the purpose of the universe. And when I went from being an atheist to being sort of a reluctant believer, the main transition that I underwent was not asking the question, is there a God, but asking the question, is the universe purposeful? Now, Thomas Nagel, I think, wrote a book called God and the Cosmos, where he tackled this question. Really interesting book. But let me first answer the other question. Is there a definition for God? Now, a lot of our definitions have been talking about things that are very causative, that are very mechanistic. So we're talking about, well, we needed God to explain certain things. So God as a mechanism, the God of the gaps, or God is the sun, or God is the reason why we're here, is God is the reason why the universe is created. I think that's asking the wrong question. If you're using theology for that, then there is no role for theology. I'll be honest about that. Now, I've written an entire book about this, and I think theology is more important to answer why-type questions than how-type questions. So I personally, in my perspective of theology overall, I parse out how-type questions and why-type questions. So I'll say, like, a how-type question would be, how did the universe come into being? What was the mechanism? That question is strictly in the domain of the sciences, as it should be. How did we evolve from single-celled organisms to walking upright mammals with big vocabularies? That's also another thing that is strictly in the domain of the sciences. Now, how did life evolve? That's also in the domain of the sciences. I think those questions can all ultimately be answered by the sciences. But the question that I look to religion for more is, why are we here? And it is a subtle difference. So from why type questions to how type questions. So that's where I think I pick up on an important delineation. Now, I do have a definition for God as well, but I know James is chomping at the bit. So let's give the floor to James, and then I'll try to give my definition after that. Or there's a bunch of questions in the chat that we talked about.
I thought, Tavo, 1 second, Tavo. I thought you would be more interested in who type questions. Get it?
Because
you're an owl?
Yes, yeah,
Get it?
yeah.
I put a 1 on the scoreboard, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. That's fine. All right. James, go ahead.
No, actually, I'm 100% aligned with Tavo here, but I have one little nuance, which maybe he's considering too, which is why more important than how or who or what or when or why or any of the other what is it, the 5 W's. You've got to put them all together, and you can't do one without the other. That's the way I see it. Okay, so if you get something about the how, then you get the how, and then you say, well, why this how? Or if you get something about the what, why this how? Why this what? Or why this who? Or why this when? And you're always going in these. Oh God, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like that pentagram. You know what they do? With the fire, the wood, the all that stuff. But you can do it with the questions the same way: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you're all the time going between those 4. And why? And this is where the dispute comes in all the time. Is somebody's trying to lay something on one question as if it's more important than the other, as if why is more important than when, or if who is more important than where. We are living in a space-time continuum. There's only certain questions we can ask, and there's only certain answers we can get in the universe that we live in. And no matter how much we pretend that we can extend beyond that, we can't.
Yeah, I mean, do you have an answer for this question on the screen? How does making up a story of a god answer why? I think that's an interesting question. We can talk about that, and we can tackle some other questions. But go ahead. Go
oh
ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I can answer that.
Let's go to Cajek first, because I think I want to give him a chance to talk to.
So I do think that from what how I heard Tavo's definition, which is very interesting, is that kind of God is a roadmap or a worldview. I know I'm misrepresenting, but I'm trying to put it in a context that I can understand. And if God is a roadmap or a worldview, then, and maybe it's filtered through religion, then it can answer why. I'm not saying that it's good or I endorse that, but that's kind of how I would picture Tavo. I hope. Who knows? But this is how I would, if I was Tavo, this is how I would steelman his argument on that, maybe.
Well, let me answer this question in a different way, and I'll be the interlocutor, and you can be the question answer for the answer to Darren's question, Cajek, and I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
Is the universe purposeful, or is it a brute fact?
It's just a thing that exists.
Okay, so you're in the category of a brute fact.
Yeah.
Now, are we the only universe, or is there a multiverse?
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to ask you to commit, and there's a specific reason why. Because if you say we are the only universe, and this universe is merely a brute fact, then I think the analysis becomes a lot more difficult. So specifically, how do you answer the fine-tuning problem if we are the only universe that exists?
So I don't think the fine-tuning problem demands an answer. I find it uninteresting. Basically, it is essentially, I think that it's not proven that the numbers could be different. It's not proven that the numbers are could be different at all, or that the numbers are unchangeable. It's not proven on that either. It's more of a thing of chance. Fine tuning is not an interesting. It's not interesting to me, and it's just another God of the gaps argument. Adding God to fine tuning, fine tuning does. Adding a God to fine tuning makes no sense because it's just another mystery that is completely unanswered.
Well, then
So-
let me ask you two other questions then. Why is there something rather than nothing? And you can say, well, it's just a brute fact. I mean, that's or you can say, I don't care. That's another option.
Okay.
And in addition to that, why should this universe be intelligible? And then in addition to that question, maybe an additional, why should there be complexity in the universe? In other words, why isn't it just a universe of just dust? Why aren't we just like sort of in a sea of plasma? Like what? So I mean, I think the question is, why does the universe have the features that it has that enables stars, that enables galaxies, that enables complex life?
Well, so the real answer to all three of these is I don't know. But some of these questions are unintelligible. Why is there something instead of nothing is a question that cannot be approached. You can't approach it from any angle. Why is
well? I think you can. You can say that something is purposeful.
Now
we can say we exist for a purpose.
Now we're getting back to, if you define God as the thing that made the universe intelligible, then I just wouldn't agree with that definitely. Like, first of all, you'd have to prove that it's real, and there is no proof that it's real. It's just another God of the gaps. Why is the universe intelligible? I should turn it around and say, of course the universe is intelligible to beings that grew up in this universe. We are
why should the universe have beings in it?
Why wouldn't the universe have beings in it?
Because there are multiple other conformations of a universe that doesn't have beings. I could imagine a universe where there's just rocks. I could imagine a universe where there's just a bunch of black holes. I could imagine a universe where there's just a really fine uniform plasma throughout the whole universe.
I don't see how
here's my question. All these arguments get back to the fact that there is a probability space of universe.
No. This Darren Lute is doing an excellent. Adding a God to this doesn't answer any questions, and it doesn't answer any questions at all. It just makes a new layer of mystery because. Well,
but wait a second, and I appreciate Darren's answer as well, but we haven't answered the question. Do you acknowledge that there's at least a probability space of universes that we might conceive of?
I disagree that the universe could be different in any way at all. I need proof that it could be different in any way at all.
Well, any of the constants of nature could be off by, for instance, like a quadrillionth.
They could.
That would make the universe massively different.
Are you sure? Could they, Tavo? Could you prove that? Could you prove that they could be different at all?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You could prove that the numbers could be different.
Yes.
In how?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no analysis that shows why these things are constrained at all. Moreover, there's several lines of analysis that suggest that these aren't entirely disarticulated variables within the universe.
It all comes down to the God of the gaps. We don't understand something, therefore God. But that's all it ever is. This is
not a God of the gaps argument, and
it's totally a God of the gaps argument. It is the most.
No. It's not. This is not a God of the gaps argument. And let me explain why.
Yes, it is.
Let me explain why, because I think that'll help make more sense. A God of the gaps argument says here there is a thing that we don't understand, okay, and therefore God did it. Right?
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying here is we understand much of the features of the universe. And there are many possible explanations for those features, but the least parsimonious explanation is that those features are purposeful the way they are.
Now, wait a moment.
In other words, there's several explanations for why the variables are the way they are in our universe. Let me explain the thought, because this is important.
God is parsimonious? Come on, buddy. God is the least principled.
Wait a second. Wait a second, Cajek. Now I've been very patient. I've ceded my turn several times. So let me finish the argument here. So
Okay.
there are several. Yeah, and James, we'll get to you. I know you're chomping at the bit too, and Michael's back in the chat as well. But there are several explanations. What's that?
No. Sorry about it. I had some internet issues. That's all.
Yeah. All right. So there are several explanations for why our universe looks like it the way it does. Okay. One is constrainment, but several of the variables that we look at when we look at the universe seem like they're totally independent from each other. Now you could argue, well, maybe there's something that links them all that we don't understand. But then there's a real gaps argument that you're citing. Then you're bringing in a. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. All right. So we will get to some of these questions. We've got Otangelo in the chat. We've got Chronicles who wants to. We've been here for an hour. So if anyone wants to peace out, I want to bring Otangelo onto the stage, and it looks like Chronicles wants to enter the stage too. And Chronicle 33. And if you want Chronicle, I'll bring you on. Let's go to James, and then I'll add Otangelo to the stage, and I'll just copy and paste the link to the chat, just because we have.
All
Go ahead, James.
Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for chiming in. I really appreciate the way you've contributed. I appreciate you. And we'll bring Chronicles, and I'll put the link to joining the chat. And Michael, let's stay in touch, because if you want to do one of these that's more focused on you, I think we didn't do a great job of keeping the conversation as focused on Cajek for as long as I'd intended. But Michael, you're a great interlocutor. I really appreciate the conversation. I hope you'll join us again. And if you want to be more of a focus of the conversation, I'm happy to have you on anytime. And if you ever wanted to do one of these in a different time frame so that we can get more focused conversation, I'd love that as well. All right. So James wants to contribute, and then we'll go to Otangelo.
Yeah, I want to say something about the use of the name God in these things, because one of my favorite physicists, Tavo knows this.
And actually, before James, just really quick before you answer, I do want to thank again Michael for joining the conversation. Thanks, Michael, very much for joining the conversation.
Oh yeah.
And well, yeah. But all right, let's go back to James, and we're talking a little bit about God of the Gaps. But if people want to join the chat, I'd love that as well. And I know Otangelo has some thoughts on the God of the Gaps argument, so I'm glad you're here as well. We'll have you weigh in after James. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, one of my favorite physicists is Richard Feynman. Tavo knows this. I love Richard Feynman. And Richard Feynman defined himself as an atheist. But Richard Feynman used God language all the time. And in particular, when it comes to the fine structure constant. Now, this is one of my pet peeves with a lot of apologists, is they're all the time going the cosmological constant and stuff like that. And I always say, you need to go to the fine structure constant. And without going into a lot of detail on that, we'll just say that Richard Feynman said that every physicist should put that over the door of his, his little office or whatever, because we don't know what that number is, why it should be what it is, 1 over 137, and it seems like God has wrote it or written it. All right, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to say that Richard Feynman lacked the language for anything else to describe this number other than God wrote it. All right, even as an atheist, he didn't believe in God, but he had to bring this God language in here just to describe the fine structure constant. Now that is not, I'm not in any way saying that proves God exists. But what I'm saying is this God language is, and this God of the Gap stuff is not, it's not the way atheists make it out to be. I mean, are we saying that Richard Feynman is saying that the fine structure constant is God of the gaps. No, that was not what he's saying. But he's saying that this thing is so anomalous the way it comes together in physics that I ain't got no other words for it but to say that God wrote it into the structure of the universe.
Well, let's get
That's not a proof. That's not a proof.
I think
it's not a proof. It's just significant.
Let's get Otangelo's perspective on this, and then we'll come back to this. We've got a lot of interesting conversations. And Cajek, I'd like to take a crack at answering this question, but I'm going to ask that if I tackle this question, that you let me say my piece on it. But in the meantime, let's go to Otangelo, because we haven't heard from him yet, and he's new to the chat, and he's got a really great channel. Check out Otangelo's channel. Everyone should subscribe to that channel as well. Otangelo, go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. So in regards of the fine structure constant, I can quote here Feynman. He says, "It has been a mystery ever since it was discovered more than 50 years ago, and all good theoretical physicists put this number up on their wall and worry about it. Immediately, you would like to know where this number for a coupling comes from. It is related to p or perhaps to the base of natural logarithms. Nobody knows. It's one of the greatest damn mysteries in physics, a magic number that comes to us with no understanding by man. You might say the hand of God wrote that number, and we don't know how he pushed his pencil. We know what kind of a dance to do experimentally to measure this number very accurately, but we don't know what kind of dance to do on the computer to make this number come out without putting it secretly." I could go on, but the fact is that this number is fine-tuned to permit that we exist. We wouldn't be here if the fine structure constant wouldn't be what it is. And the big question mark is that there is no physical necessity that it is what it is. It could be a completely different parameter and we would not be here. So one of the common excuses by those which do not want to admit that there has to be someone which fine-tunes everything, they try to say, well, it couldn't be different. But the fact is that indeed it could be a different number. There is nothing physical that constrains it to be what it is. And that's a big question. And of course, someone can say, well, we just, that's a God of the gaps. But I would say, no, God is the best explanation for why these numbers have been chosen so that we could be here.
Tavo,
I want to go back to Cajek's question as far as the God of the gaps goes. Why is the atheist on the hook to explain how the universe began, but the theist can just say God did it? No, so I want to be really precise about what I'm saying here. As we said in the beginning of the conversation, my contention is that the universe is purposeful, that in its singularity, the universe in its uniqueness has some sort of purpose. Okay. Now, there are many, many ways to explain why the universe is the way it is. One way is saying, well, these values are somehow constrained in ways that we don't understand. But then you're really inciting on, and you're saying, well, there's, maybe we'll understand these in some way. Well, this is no more elegant than a God of the gaps argument. And the reason why it's not more elegant is you're saying at some point in the future, we might understand this, right? So it's kind of a future humans of the gap or future understanding of the gap. It doesn't expand the debate any better. Now, there's another way to explain why the universe is fine-tuned, okay? And
I will get to that. You just said something I disagree with.
Well, wait a second. Okay. Well, what did I say though? I said you had to let me finish my thought on this.
You got it.
Okay. So there's another explanation, which is that there are just so many versions, so many iterations of our universe or of multiverses that we just happen to be in the one that worked out for the best. But many physicists would argue that there have to be at least, and I'll get to you, James, as well. So we'll do Cajek and then we'll go back to James. And then I want to bring Otangelo back in to say a few more things. But many physicists also say that, the number of universes that you have to have the coordination between different, disparate, and disarticulated and unassociated constants to make this universe work out the way it does is astronomically huge. It's somewhere on the order of 10 to the power of 500, right? So if we live in the only universe that exists, then I think anyone who says that this universe is not purposeful then has a problem. And you can say, well, we'll figure out how the numbers work out, or we'll figure out the constrainment, or we'll figure out how these variables are related. But then you're dealing with a future human understanding of the gaps. It's no better than a God of the gaps argument. And again, my whole contention is that this universe is purposeful, is that in our singularity, in our uniqueness, this universe exists for a reason. And if we are indeed the only universe, as many people think we might be, then any other argument has a real huge problem on its hands. All right, let's go back to James, and then Cajek, and then Antangelo. So James, do you want to answer? Oh, I guess James is muted. Sorry about that. Sorry, let me unmute you. I'm looking at the Cajek. You're not getting steamrolled, Cajek. We'll bring some more people in, I promise. But okay,
so
let's go to James.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm sorry. I know there's some background, but what I want to say now, Tangelo is probably the only one that's going to understand what I'm saying, right? But the fine structure constant, here's why I zero in on that, is because the fine structure constant and the Shroud of Turin, the two are directly connected. If I do not see how that image could be formed on the Shroud of Turin unless there's some type of decoupling between what we know, the fine structure constant. We got that from Dirac's equation. All right. So if we back that up, I do not see how the Shroud of Turin could be formed unless there was some type of decoupling between the Dirac's equation. Can I ask you this? Because I know nobody really gets what I'm saying, or they don't seem to. But do you kind of get what I'm saying, that the fine structure constant has to do with the coupling between the forces that solidify the atom? Okay, now if Jesus is decoupling, and that quantum tunneling is happening and everything else, what I see is that Dirac decoupling is taking place. And I don't really know how to say that in the right way. And so maybe if you, as a much more educated person, can explain that, do you kind of get what I'm getting at? And if you don't, fine, say no. If you do, if you think I'm crazy, say no.
Let's turn it over to Antangelo, and then we'll go back to Cajek, because I definitely don't want Cajek to get steamrolled. Now, moreover, I do want to point out, though, James, you've got a really great video on this on your channel, right? And we've reviewed this argument before on here, so I'm happy to talk about it more. But I also want to direct people to your channel. Go ahead, Antangelo.
I think this is a very interesting point which you're making in regards of bringing physics into the question of the image formation on the shroud. I don't know if you have heard Robert Drucker. He is a physicist which has worked 38 years with atoms, and he has brought up a very, very interesting hypothesis which would explain also the question of the 1260 to 3090 dating. So he brings atoms, protons into the explanation. So it is certainly a very interesting direction to go to investigate how eventually we can explain the image formation based on on physics and atoms.
Okay, now I want to go back to Cajek, and then let's switch the topics because I want to give Cajek the last word because he's the only atheist on the panel, and I don't want to like I definitely don't want to steamroll Cajek. So let's do that, and then I'll do an introduction after that to Eastern Thomas, and then Cajek, you've seen in advance some of the questions that we have for this chat, so I'll pull up those questions. But let's go to Cajek and then Eastern Thomas. I want to introduce your channel because it really is a fantastic channel, and I'm so thrilled that you're here.
I was machine gunned with a lot of different stuff. So I tried to write down stuff that I could, but Darren Lute has it exactly right. We don't know where these numbers are coming from. We do not know. Saying that a God did it is adding another mystery to the already mysterious, so it's God of the gaps. It's just God of the gaps. Now, Tavo said something. You're saying we might understand it.
Hold on. What numbers are you talking about?
Hey, James, let's give Cajek a chance to respond because we don't want him to get steamrolled. So I appreciate. I know you're chomping at the bit, James. And Otangelo, I've muted you just because you were typing.
I'm not steamrolling him. I just want to know what he's saying. We don't know where these numbers come from. A lot of these numbers we do know where they're coming from.
Wait a minute, James. Wait a minute.
Yeah, let's Cajek, I'll give you the floor. I'm
being machine gunned by things here. So
no, Cajek, we're giving you the floor, and we're not going to talk until you're done. Go ahead, Cajek.
Yeah, I'm trying to respond. So Tavo said before, you're saying we might understand in the future. No, I'm not claiming that we might understand it. We might never, like, for example, why is there something instead of nothing cannot be approached scientifically? I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever know why fine tuning is the way it is. However, adding a mysterious God to as an explanation is not parsimonious. It has zero explanatory power and zero evidence. Basically it's just God of the gaps again. Him saying, now I think it's a very tantalizing mystery. I'm not saying it's not tantalizing. I think it's extremely interesting. However, I don't think we might not ever know, and that does not mean there's a God. Adding a mysterious God to this has zero explanatory power. And it doesn't, now just saying that a God did it is not an answer. You have to explain cosmologically every
What is it, James? What is it, James? Because I do want to let Cajek finish his thought, and then I want to introduce Eastern Thomas. So,
Cajek, do you understand the difference between nothing and undefined?
James, hold on. Let's let Cajek finish because we promised that we would let him finish and have his say, and then I'll introduce Eastern Thomas after.
And I might also leave the chat. I gave Tavo my email if you wanted to be a reader of my stupid anthro mystery stories. I wanted to say that that basically it has no explanatory power, and I want to, maybe in the future Tavo can talk about what he means by adding purpose to the universe. That's interesting. So I just wanted to say that's my final little bit, and I'm going to say good night from Atheist Land, and I hope you guys enjoyed my my little ramblings.
Well, Cajek, I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Love you, Cajek.
Love you, James. Hope that cigar is good, man.
I hope we talk again, Cajek. I just want to give you two assignments to think about. You said something during your last statement, which was science may never give us the answer to this. That we're actually converging on the same thing, which is, that's what I'm saying. It's time to ask the question why, right? It's time to depart from scientism as a rigorous framework and just embrace that the answer might not come from science.
Or embrace mystery, Tavo, and just say, I don't know. That's
yeah, absolutely. Now, the second thing that I just want to say that is I really enjoyed this conversation, and I've really enjoyed you being on the panel, and I hope you're not leaving because you're steamrolled, because I will try and get more atheists up here in the chat. But if you ever want to do this again, the invitation is totally open. Can I ask you as another thing that I'm going to give you homework for, Cajek? And this is just,
Sure.
and I hope you don't mind my saying this, but I was, I just want to ask that in the future when you comment on channels, can you please try to be just a little bit nicer? And that's not coming from me. I've enjoyed your commentary. I love your comments, but it does come from something that other people have told me. Now here's what I want to underscore is I'm not saying you must be nicer. I'm just saying try, and I'm just saying a little bit nicer if you can, and that comes from other people who've asked me that. I hope that's okay that I say that. And Cajek, I really appreciate our friendship, and I want you to come on the channel whenever you want, and I'm really glad that you're here. So
I wanted to let me answer that
It's
last.
not me. I don't care.
James, you're going to get all the
me too.
heat.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely, me too. Okay, absolutely, me too. I enjoy your comments. Go ahead, Cajek.
There's a difference between nice and kind. How am I being kind to you if I let you drown in your misconceptions? And that's how I frame it. And when you're wrong and your arguments are trash, you're going to have, that's my feedback. I'm an editor too. I write and I edit. And if your arguments are trash, I'm going to call you out on it because James is having a good time. Because
I'm muting James just for people that have to hear the coughing, but okay. Go ahead.
I would rather be kind than just nice and polite, So, but yeah, I'll take it to the heart. I'll take it to heart, sort of.
Well, Cajek, there was a lot of stuff that we didn't get into that I wanted to get into, and so I hope you're welcome.
I'm losing my voice, Tavo. It's past my bedtime.
No, I understand. I've really enjoyed this. I hope you come by anytime, and I'm glad you're here. All right, let me just remind Otangelo, if you want to say anything, Otangelo, just raise your hand because I've got you muted just to keep down the background. Oh, okay. All right, I'm
going to say good night, everybody.
Okay, thanks for being on here, Cajek. And let me introduce Eastern Thomas as well. So
hello,
Eastern,
how are you?
Really great to have you here, Eastern Thomas. Your channel is really fantastic. Boy, I've got 3 really great creators on the screen with me, and I'm really glad that you're here. So now all 3 of us are sort of aligned with our viewpoints, and TNC Apologetics is on now as well. Again, really great to have you here. These are 4 people with 4 really, really wonderful channels. So I hope that people who are atheists will consider this an opportunity to come on the channel, have a chat with us. You can ask us any questions in the chat. You can ask us questions, by joining the conversation. I know somebody wanted to debate Christianity, so I put the link to join the conversation in the chat again, and it's also up at the top of the chat as well. So if anyone wants to join the conversation, I'd love that. Let me turn it over now to Eastern Thomas to introduce themselves, and then I'll turn it over to TNC to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you. Thank you for introducing me onto your channel. I appreciate that introduction. Yeah, I've got a channel on YouTube kind of centered around Thomism and the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas. I try to take a lot of the theological views of St. Thomas Aquinas and kind of put them into bite-sized bits so that people who, maybe, don't want to read 10 books can kind of, watch like a 2 or 3 minute video and kind of get the summary of certain ideas. But that's mostly what my channel is about. But I appreciate being here, and it's good to be on.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we got a comment finally at Thomas. That's great. And I've actually been engaging more with Thomism just in my own reading. So I hope we talk more offline and you send me some reading materials that you recommend.
Yeah.
Let's do a little bit of an introduction from TNC Apologetics.
How you guys doing?
Great to have you here. Yeah.
I'm doing good. Yes, I'm TNC Apologetics. Me and Tavo met like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of prove me wrong streams, so topics based. So I'll be most recent one I did was Jesus God, prove me wrong. I usually let anyone come up, try to refute the topic that's at hand, and we usually bring other Trinitarian Christians up, and not too much because we don't want to bombard the people that are trying to attack it. But it's a great time. It's about planting seeds at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
And just a reminder to everybody listening, make sure that you support all these channels. There's a lot of great content being represented on the screen. Really, you guys each kind of have your own flavors of really interesting content that you're making. So I feel very privileged to be to have galvanized this little meeting of the minds for apologeticism. Well, we don't have an active question in the chat right now, but I do have some topics of discussion. But let me just put a comment in the chat that I'm welcoming atheists to join the chat as well.
And by the way, Eastern Thomas, I haven't seen you in a minute. How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. How have you been?
Good, man. Good.
Good.
I watched a couple of your videos that you posted too.
Thank
They
you.
were
Thank
really
you.
good, man. And I see that you're getting some subs over there too.
Yeah, I did see that a little bit. Yeah.
I was like, okay, he's getting out there, which is awesome. That means you're getting in the algorithm, you know?
Yeah.
So I did get like some topics for conversation, and I'll open this up to the group. And if we have more atheistic questions from the chat, we will happily answer any questions from atheists. And also, in addition to that, if you're interested in joining the chat, I just posted the link to join the chat into in the conversation. So please feel free to join the chat. Darren, if you'd like to join, that'd be great to get some more atheist representation. Let's do the question from Darren, because I'll put this question on the screen right now. And if anyone wants to take a hack at this, here's a question. How did you determine the probability of a God that makes a God more probable than any natural explanation? Does anyone want to particularly take a whack at this question? I have some questions on the screen as well, too.
That's a good question. And I think that precisely the probabilistic
I mean, I'm not really like, because you know me, Tavo. I'm really like about Muslims and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and stuff. The question that I'll ask him
can
is,
you hear me, TNC?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted, Otangelo was talking. You may not have heard it.
Oh, I didn't. He has like a little circling thing on him, so I can't really hear him.
Oh, Otangelo is the guy with the green shirt up here. Sorry, Otangelo. And what I'll try and do is I'll try and maximize the people who are talking. So Otangelo, let's go to Otangelo first.
I can't hear him right now.
Otangelo, can you try talking? Just make sure we're getting.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay.
I can't hear him. I don't know if it's just me.
Oh, weird.
For me, it's like a little loading icon for him.
Can everyone else hear Otangelo? All right. Well, I'll try and play mediator. We'll let Otangelo take a crack at it.
I can't hear 21st century projects either. I'll leave and come back.
Okay. Well, let's give Otangelo a chance to answer the question. So go ahead, Otangelo.
Yeah. So I think that probabilistic calculations, they are very useful in order to have an idea about the probability that the null hypothesis makes any sense. And you can do that in regards of cosmology, as also in special in regards of biological information. And you can you have the framework, and based on that you can make calculations and see how unlikely that naturalistic explanations are. The problem is that, at least in my experience, whenever I brought them to the table, I've seen atheists always bringing up some kind of excuse and just not getting where I was, what my point was. So, I mean, then the question is, I mean, if the evidence is so crystal clear and atheists nonetheless don't get it, why is that? I mean, I personally don't have an explanation, and I don't understand why that is so. The only thing that I can think about is that when people put their wishful thinking and their bias in first place and then reason just behind, then you will always make sure that your bias wins, and that what you want to be true will remain what you will keep to believe. Despite the fact that eventually science and scientific calculations simply do not lead you where you want the truth to be.
Well, I think that's a really good answer. I'm going to bring TNC back in. So let's do a quick audio check, and then I'll let TNC answer this question as well. So TNC, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, Tangelo, can you talk just so we can see if everyone's audible?
Yes, can you hear
Okay,
me?
yeah. Hey, forgive me for talking over you. I'm sorry about that. I could not hear you.
No, it's okay. That's
You're
okay.
good now. You guys are good now. So.
Do you want to take a crack at answering the question?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say, like, you know me, like I target usually like Muslims, Jehovah's Witnesses, or Mormons. But the real question you can like ask like atheists or really it's like, okay, who do you think that Jesus is? Right? Because Christ was like one of the most evidence backed up people to walk this earth. And so that's a good stepping point that I usually talk with atheists, but that's beside off his question. But another thing too is like you just constantly ask them, okay, where did the beginning start? Okay, Big Bang Theory, where did that start? And you kind of just go on and on and on like that too. You know what I mean? Because at the end of it, it's spontaneous, and it's like what's the saying? It's either you believe in the miracle birth of the universe, or you believe in the virgin birth.
Well, Darren is the one who asked the question, and he's in the chat now, and I've got him now on the screen. So, Darren, I want to give you a chance to advocate for the question, advocate for the premise, and advocate for your perspective on it. And because you're the only atheist, I definitely want to make sure we're all respectful and we're not steamrolling you. So go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, no, you can steamroll if you want. It doesn't matter to me. First off, I would say that out of the two answers to the question, neither one of them have actually answered the question, because I'm asking about probabilities. Because anytime for like the fine-tuning argument, theists propose that God is more likely, they never give the probabilities for a God. As far as I can tell, the probabilities of a God is 0. So even if the fine-tuning says that the constants are umpteenth decimal points probable, I mean, that's still more probable than 0. So if the theist really wants to make arguments about probability, they have to come up with a probability of God. Otherwise, it's a pointless endeavor.
Well, let me turn it over to James. I do want to address that first, and my contention is this. I think we have two things on the table. We have a universe that has features that are hard to reconcile through purely scientific analysis, and then we have two explanations. One is that the universe is purposeful in its singularity. At the moment, that seems to be the best explanation for the data. Now, the
Except
other
no one
possible
agrees with
explanation. No, wait a second. The other possible explanation is that that there are multiple universes, or these data points are somehow constrained, or that there are other constraints in the variables. And the explanation for that we get, the best thing that we get that approximates an explanation, is that perhaps someday humans will understand something that solves all these possible conundrums. So either way, you're just putting another glue of the gaps together and putting it in that logical placeholder, right? I'm saying the universe is purposeful based on everything that we know about it. You're saying, well, it's possible that future humans will understand this information better. But here's the thing that I'm advocating for. Let's do the best job that we can with the information that we currently have available to ourselves. At the moment, a singular explanation just does seem to be the best possible explanation. Now, I understand you're saying, well, perhaps humans will understand it someday, but to me, that's just another gaps argument. You're just saying it's a future humans of the gaps. Now, I want to give you a chance to respond, and then we'll go to James, because I know James is chomping at the bit too.
Yeah, I didn't hear any probability for a God in there. And no one, I mean, if you are correct that everyone thinks that there's purpose to the universe, then why are like 98% of cosmologists not Christian? There's no reason to think that there's purpose to the universe. You start with that premise, but you never support it.
I know of many cosmologists that are Christian. There are many scientists who are Christian. Yeah,
like I said, 98%. There's a lot of cosmologists out there.
Where did you get that statistic from? 98%.
It's an old statistic that they get from polls that they did from.
I would be wary of old statistics that come from some inscrutable source.
No, they blanking at the moment, but it
Well,
was
you can
from.
find it. You can find it online and bring it up in the chat. I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah, it came when they polled like the big science communities.
All right. Well, let's turn it over to James, and we'll give James a chance to answer, and then I'll go back to Darren because I want Darren to get his word in. All right, go ahead, James.
All right, first, I want to know why statistics is the best tool to evaluate this. I mean, there are all kinds of mathematical tools. We got category theory, we got sheaves, we got topology, we got combinatorics, we got spline smoother. We got all of these different mathematical tools. And for some reason, everybody has statistics crammed into their mind as if this is the best mathematical tool for this particular problem. And it's not. Go ahead, answer me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why theists never come up with a probability for God, because statistics isn't the right tool, but they want to use it for the fine-tuning argument. So what can you do?
I agree. I wish they would quit. I wish they would go to other tools.
I just wish they would give a probability for God, because if the probability for God is 0, then it doesn't matter how fine-tuned it is, right?
No, if they've got a topological argument for God, that is legitimate, but it doesn't mean it's a statistical argument for God.
Right, but they're trying to run a statistical argument with the fine-tuning.
Because they're idiots. Because they're idiots. I agree with you there.
Just to fact check you there, Darren, that 98% statistic doesn't look like it's anywhere. And Eastern Thomas, TNC Apologetics, I think you're both muted yourselves, but feel free to I want to make sure you guys get represented.
Yeah, I'll definitely jump in. I don't want to interrupt anybody.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of just listening.
Well, go ahead. Do you want to take on and answer that question? Do we
Yeah,
have
I can do my best. I think the 5 ways from St. Thomas Aquinas do a sufficient. I think they're sufficient in showing not only proofs for the existence of God, but I think in them are contained sufficient evidences as to why a naturalistic understanding for the creation of the universe doesn't work. I mean, for example, if you look at the first way, one of the things St. Thomas talks about is he says there's 2 possibilities as to how everything came into being. Either A, there was an unlimited series of potent acts and Aristotle are essentially acts that are occurring while also being changed, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense because potent acts in and of themselves by their own nature are being changed. So that would mean in their own, by their own nature, every single potent act would have to be caused by another one. Or there could be a pure act, which is completely immaterial, completely simple, completely immutable, whom we call God, or who Aristotle called the first mover. And so I think that's one area. I think also, and St. Thomas talks about this a lot, kind of anticipating some of the objections that would come later on from people like David Hume, is, in a purely naturalistic understanding of the universe, gradations of being and the perfection of things basically lose all intelligibility, and science itself loses intelligibility as well. And in the manner that all creatures have a perfect end. If there were no God, and if they were, if there was just some sort of, naturalistic capacity that caused them, then science itself would completely fall apart because there would be no intellectual substance to how certain things operate or the forms of certain objects. And I would also say the argument from contingency does a good job of showing why the explanation of God makes a lot more sense than a naturalistic explanation. Essentially, it's the idea that anyone who does not need to exist, anything that doesn't need to exist, is contingent on another. So, for example, you and I don't need to exist for the earth to continue. Because we don't need to exist, our very existence is contingent on our parents. conceiving us. If our parents don't conceive us, we don't exist. So we're contingent on that. But everything that's contingent eventually has to go back to something that lacks any sort of contingency. And we would say that that is God. So I think the 5 ways, in my opinion, in many respects, do a very good job of showing why, at least as I see it, a naturalistic worldview just does not work.
Now, Eastern Thomas, there is a question on the screen for you for modern atheism. If you don't know this channel, Modern Atheism has a really fantastic channel, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to each other. So why don't you take this question? And then I know, James, you wanted to say something as well, but let's first go to Eastern Thomas's answer to, or Eastern Thomas' answer to the modern atheism question. Because if you guys don't know each other, then his channels, you all should collaborate with each other. Modern Atheism has a really fantastic channel. All right, go ahead.
Sure.
Do you see the question on the screen there?
Yeah, so he says, what does it mean to say that God is identical to his nature? So this is getting at the essence distinction. So essentially what St. Thomas Aquinas argues is he says that in all creatures, essentially in layman's terms, he tries to say that the fact that we exist is different from who we are. Who we are is essentially our nature. Or our essence, rather, not really our nature, but our essence. But that's distinct from the fact that we exist. But he says in God, this is not so. He says in God, the fact that God exists is no different than who God is. And this is essentially how he explains how divine simplicity is able to operate. Essentially, he says that, going to the 3rd way, which is the argument of contingency, he says that if God had parts, like if God had an arm or a leg or an eye or a toe, well, that would imply contingency because, the fact that I have an arm means that there's blood flowing through my body. So that means my arm moving up and down is contingent on other antecedent factors. But since this doesn't exist in God, God can't have parts, because if he had parts, that would involve contingency. And so the essay existence distinction is essentially his way of kind of trying to explain divine simplicity and kind of sort of showing how that can work in his framework.
All right, so we have another question on the screen from Darren, and I see there's even another question in the chat. So Darren, what I'm going to do this time is I'll let you phrase the question, make the argument, and then you can pick who you want to respond to it.
Okay, I don't care. We were just, I'm sorry, I don't know who's the Thomist.
Eastern Thomas is in the upper right screen with the wings. TNC Apologetics has the big shield.
So can I call you ET?
Yeah, a lot of people do call me ET.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry. I've never really found the Thomist 5 ways things to be very coherent, much less persuasive. So why are we assuming that some sort of non-contingent thing has to be at a beginning? I mean, why are we even assuming that there's a beginning to begin with?
Well, St. Thomas essentially says that, without it, it causes a logical contradiction in the order of causality. Everything...
I know he says that, but can you explain what that logical contradiction is and actually have an A and not A? Because that's what a logical contradiction is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he would say in regards to, the universe having a beginning, I think the universe having a beginning would require some, well, first of all, I think it would require some set of unlimited causes, whether there's a beginning or not a beginning. I think a naturalistic framework would require an unlimited set of potent causes, which again, I don't think works because, potent causes in and of themselves exist to have an antecedent. But in regards to, but another thing too that he says is there's what's known as efficient causality. Efficient causality is essentially the idea that everything that exists has to have a principal agent. And so he would say, and that has to be perpetual, so as long as existence continues to be. And so he would say that the problem with the unlimited, no beginning Earth is that it lacks that principal agent, it lacks that efficient cause.
Okay, so why do we care? Because I didn't hear a logical contradiction anywhere in there.
Well, I think he would say that he would say that,
Why don't you ruminate over that answer for a second? Because I do want to introduce Broken Lou, who joined the chat, and there's a specific reason why I wanted to introduce him, which is because he's an atheist, so that'll bring more balance. But we're close to the 2-hour mark, so I really want to underscore that if you're enjoying this chat, if you're getting something out of it, please click like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel. That really does mean a lot to me. I want to give Brooklyn Lou a chance to introduce yourself, because you've also got a really, really fantastic channel. And then also, in addition to that, I'm going to encourage everyone who's on the panel right now to please go to the chat and put in your links on the chat. And I just want to make sure that I flag all of you for joining. And I want to make sure that I'm driving traffic, because everybody I'm looking at on the screen has really fantastic content on their channel right now. Brooklyn Lou, huge kindness that you're here. Your channel is fantastic. Really glad to have you here. But
wow. I really appreciate that. You're very kind.
We've not talked in a while too, so I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, no, I know. We had a couple of nice conversations in the past.
Yeah.
I speak with Atangelo a lot. I don't know if he's still around, but
he popped off, but he was in here, and he's got some really great content, especially recently.
Yeah, and I always have a nice talks with Atangelo. I think he's a good guy, even though in the atheist community some of them don't like him, but I do. I have just 2 questions I'd like to ask the panel. All of you guys, right? And it shouldn't be that hard, but it may get philosophical. And I'm asking this respectfully. Okay, I'm not trying to get people or trap people, but how should a regular person, right? This is what I'm asking. Regular person, non-academic, just a regular Joe, right? How should they make sense of an unchanging God giving what seems to be opposite moral commands in different eras and in different parts of the Bible? Like, for example, in Exodus, we see God commanding not to kill, forbidding killing. And then in Samuel 15, the famous one with the Amalekites, we see him commanding the killing of entire populations. What principle or verse or concept is going to tell an average person what God's true eternal morality is?
I'm going to let TNC Apologetics answer that one first, because and then Brooklyn, if you want somebody specifically to answer that, feel free. But let's turn it over to TNC, and we'll just see what happens in the chat after that.
So you're saying you're basically asking, why does God allow bad things to happen? And he says not to kill, right, in Exodus, and then says, I'm sorry.
I just want to reframe it a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think I'm asking a more difficult question, actually. So
okay. No, you're good. If you want to rephrase it,
right.
You're good.
What I'm trying to ask is, a regular person, right, looking at this and contemplating the nature of God, right? We're told God is good, right? I mean, but that's kind of cliche, right? Oh, God is good, God is good all the time. But a regular person sees a God that is telling people never to kill, what actually kind of one of the commandments. And then they see God telling people to kill entire populations of people. So there seems to be an inherent contradiction. So if I'm a regular person and I'm contemplating the the morality of God, what am I supposed to look at? Or am I supposed to just kind of go with the flow any which way my mind decides to go?
Okay, cool. I feel like the best way to explain this is with an analogy. Do you have a family by chance?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's say you're out and about with your family, right? Now, let's say a group of guys come to jump your family, right? And with that being said, you're going to protect your family at all costs, right?
Yeah, I certainly would try.
Yeah. But so even if you have a gun on you, you're going to use that gun to protect you from these guys that are trying to bring harm to you, right?
I would use a gun if I had to, but
Yeah,
I would try to not use it if I can deter them by pointing it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the reason I asked that, because that's the same viewpoint we have with God. Every time he removed a population like that is to protect his people. And with on top of it, especially in our faith too, because I know a lot of people like to bring up like, children and babies and all that type of stuff. Even in our own faith, though, we view that as children are innocent in God's eyes and they're in heaven with him. So we also see that point too on top of it. So whenever those actions are done, it's seen as, okay, it's protection against his people and he loves his people. And that's why he does these things.
So would you then say, and this is what I'm thinking, but you can, maybe I'm going in a different direction with this, but I mean, would you then say that God's personal morality is situational, that he just decides on the spot, like, I don't like that, and I'm going to kill these people because I want to protect
I mean, the thing with God, though, too, is you'll see a lot of times throughout scripture is he'll give these people like a warning before anything happens. Like, hey, turn from your sinful way, guys, or this is what's going to happen to you. And he does that. But if they don't listen, then we see what happens. So because we believe that he's a fair and just God at the end of the day. So he's going to give them an opportunity to turn away from the sinful things that they're doing so that they may come to him.
Yeah, but you would agree that if the same God can tell people not to kill, and in a different situation tell people to kill an entire population, that it's situational to that God or subjective to that God. It's what the God decides. I mean, is that wrong?
I wouldn't say like due to like circumstances kind of thing, right? Is that what you're asking? Like, oh, due to circumstances, this is when he'll kill?
Well, I'm saying when analyzing God, if I really deeply want to understand the morality of this God, right? And he says, don't kill, love, stuff like that. And then
now, with that analogy that I said, though, you think that's love, right? That's because you love your family. You're gonna want to protect them. So with that love, it's the same thing with God. He's gonna want to protect his children from enemies that may come and harm him, because most of these people that he wiped out were gonna do these things.
So he was. I mean, just so I understand. I'm trying to go exactly with what you're saying. I try to understand it correctly. So God, when he decides to destroy an entire population, that's love. Is that correct?
No, it's love for his people to protect them. Yeah,
right. But he probably doesn't love the people he's killing, right? Or no?
I would say more of the lines of he loves them in a way of he created them, but is like, what's the best way to say
Where
this?
is this love coming in at? There ain't nothing in the text says anything about love.
What text? I wasn't talking about a particular text. I was talking about.
Well, what the hell are you talking about then?
I think
there's a basic.
I think it's a good point.
Misunderstanding here. I mean, I didn't.
He's basically saying, like, if God loves us all, like, don't. I'm not trying to steel man you, but is this
question? All right, you don't want to take it. It's fine.
No. So I don't want to steel man you. So basically, you're saying if God loves all of you, all of us, right? Then why would he want to kill the
Maybe
ones that
he
he
don't.
loves?
Maybe he don't.
Mm.
So that's fine, but that's a fair answer. But to tell me read about love, that's not a fair answer.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I would certainly argue from the standpoint that that God does love each and every person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's my starting rubric. Now, I think there's a covenant that God it communicates through humans at different ages. Like there's the Adamic covenant, and then the Abrahamic, and then the Noahide covenant, and then the Mosaic covenant, and then the covenant of Jesus. So I think, like, is that really God changing, or is it, you know, God sort of navigating humans
Oh God.
through?
It was a matter of fact, Tavo. That God said these Amalekites come and killed the elderly, the lame, the everybody else that was on the back end. They were doing this despicable guerrilla warfare where they were killing these people, and God said exterminate them, because, and He said exterminate the children too, because they're going to train the children to be the same way. And the children in that time, that they were living in a lineage society where you were your lineage. I mean, so there's He's saying just kill all of them.
Well, let me give.
I ain't saying it's good or right in no existential sense. I'm saying it was a practical decision that God said, and whether we like it or not, I mean it worked.
Well, yeah. Well,
killing people can be loving. Is that correct, or is that way off?
No, it wasn't loving. He killed them. He said exterminate them. It wasn't. There wasn't no love about it. He said exterminate them.
He hated those people, correct?
Exactly, because they was killing all the elderly. They were killing the lame. They were killing everybody, all the stragglers that was in the Exodus that went out of Egypt. And he said, exterminate them now. He said, if that's the way they're going to do it, exterminate them. He was doing like a Steven Seagal
and
shit.
the children and animals as well. They were very bad, right?
Well, I'd like to give like a counterpoint on this, because I mean, I do believe that the starting point is love. Now, I've struggled with this, Brooklyn Lou. So I think you're asking what is a very pointed question, and it's probably hard for me to answer that question in a format like this. But let me give you a stab at what I think is the most satisfying answer that I found, which is from Origin, which says that basically, when we look at the scripture, we have to look at it through the eyes of Jesus, and using Jesus as a hermeneutical key or a lens, right?
Why do we have to do that?
Well, let me get to the end of my thought, and then I think it'll make sense. It'll crystallize, I think, my meaning.
Go ahead.
Looking back at this point. So now, if we look at what actually happened, I think it was Samuel who was in the wrong here, because he was supposed to kill all the Amalekites, and instead of doing that, he disobeyed God's
that was
rule.
Saul, not Samuel.
Yes, all right. I apologize, Saul. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. So anyways, my analysis is this, and again, if whenever I get interrupted, I kind of have to reboot myself. So let me try to finish the thought. Basically, so Origin has this reconciliation of this passage about the Amalekites, because I've struggled with this passage as well, which is that you have to use Jesus as a hermeneutical key. Now, the way that you do that is by looking at this particular aspect of it, by looking at the fact that the issue was that Saul didn't fulfill the commandment of God, right? And instead, he kept some of that stuff for himself. So the lesson here is, when you're confronting evil, you can't keep part of it for yourself. You have to exterminate it in its entirety. So I take this to be sort of more of a broad moral rubric in general, rather than, you know, you have to. I don't think the lesson of the story is you have to kill all the Amalekites that you see, right? I think the lesson of the story is, if you're confronting evil, you can't embrace part of that evil for yourself and expropriate it for your own means. That's the way Origin read it. I think that's the most satisfying way that I've encountered it. But I think what you're asking is a very challenging question. It's a challenging passage.
It was meant to be challenging. I think
It's
I wanted to
it's
give
very
you
question. I've struggled with it. So
you
that's
think I wanted to give you a question that was a cakewalk?
Well,
no. I've
well,
struggled with it myself.
Can I
To
just
be
ask something
honest,
real quick?
I think y'all are dealing with this as people that are sitting in fucking armchairs. I mean, excuse my language. Y'all are sitting in
No profanity, because I
armchairs.
think I'm a small enough channel that we should try to avoid profanity on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But y'all are sitting in these armchairs, in these couches, and you don't know what it's like on the street, and you don't know what it's like dealing with somebody that their children is going to come up and kill you because you killed their parents. And so God is saying, get rid of all of them, because this is going to be a continual problem. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's not no geometric. It's not no algebraic problem. It's not nothing to do with love. God just saying, if you don't kill these children, also them children are going to grow up and they're going to kill you, because they know who their parents are, and they're going to know that you killed them, and they're going to exact revenge. That's what it is. It's just human nature.
Well, let's. I want Darren put a really apt question that I think dovetails on what Brooklyn Lou said.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna ask him something after.
Let's go back to the TNC, but let's do Darren first, because I definitely want to make sure that the atheists aren't getting steamrolled.
Yeah. Darren,
Darren.
can I just? I'll ask both you guys this actually. What's your viewpoints on Jesus?
I'll answer. I mean, what do you mean viewpoint? Like,
do you think he existed? Do you think he walked the earth? Do you think what do you think?
I think there probably was someone named Jesus that walked the earth, but I'm not absolutely sure of that. But I think that's most likely.
Okay. I don't know. He's a really popular guy. I'm pretty sure you heard of him. He's a really famous atheist. You've heard of Bart Ehrman before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he actually did extensive research on the Bible, crucifixion, resurrection, all those types of things. And he came to the conclusion where the crucifixion is hands down one of the most evidential things to ever walk this earth. And this comes from an atheist, right? So there's plenty of evidence that Jesus was a real person and he was crucified. All right. Now the resurrection and all that, that's the faith part, right?
Yeah, it's a different thing.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
It's a totally different thing in my mind. I mean, I have no problem believing that men get crucified or that sort of thing. That doesn't, for me personally, that's pretty easy for me to accept. I don't see why it would matter, or why, it doesn't have this big ramification for me that there was a man who was crucified.
So here's two things that I'll just point out. The first thing is the reason why I brought him or brought up Jesus was because with the love argument, right? With the love question that you asked. Now, God loved us so much that as we believe, right, that he came down and he died on the cross for us, right? That's what we believe as Christians. Now, with that love, right, you can see with the crucifixion that we are evil. We are evil. We are the ones that crucified them at the end of the day, right?
I didn't.
No, but you know what I'm saying. At the time, it was the Jewish people that crucified him, and the Romans, right?
Right, but isn't it not true according to
I'm a Christian.
theology?
I don't think that's obvious. Go ahead.
I mean, isn't it not true?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said obvious.
According to Christian theology, that I myself am guilty of that when I was not there and not even thousands of years later I was born.
No, because the reason why I wanted to say that is back then you could still see the evil in Exodus all the way up till even obviously now, but even with the crucifixion, right? You can see the evil that is just that we have. It's the sinful nature that we have as humans. It's sad, but it's true. And then the second thing that I like to say is with the resurrection. When you look at these people, right, that have claimed to see the resurrection, they didn't gain any fame, they didn't get any riches, they didn't get whatever they wanted. No, they were in hiding, and when they were caught, they were martyred because of their faith. And it was not no pretty killings, you know? So they believed in something so much that they were willing to die for it.
Right. But
so listen, that's just kind of like, I would have to believe it so hard to die for it, you know?
Well, I understand, you know, the Christian message.
I'm gonna tell you something from personal experience. It's
hold up a second.
I have killed a man before, and it's like I've had to question whether I'm gonna kill another man again, and I've said no, I'm not gonna do it. I would rather die than kill another man again, because I think he's made in the image of God. Now. Now you can I mean we can go and discuss why I thought that, but that saved a lot of men's lives and saved me from a lot of sin. So y'all can figure that out on your own.
Now I want to interject at this point, because I don't want to trivialize that what you just shared. And
I just heard that he killed somebody. And that he decided not to kill
Shot
people.
a man to death.
Yeah, and then you decided not to kill people because you felt that they were made in the image of God.
That's right.
Okay, and what does that like reflect on me?
I don't know. You got to figure that out.
Well, let me interject here, because we're getting into the really serious stuff. So
I was going to add something too, Tavo. I mean, if you want me to finish.
We're
the main point.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
We are quite a bit past the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
And so I am going to have to wind things down pretty soon here. And I want.
Yeah, I'll just make one final remark.
Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
The reason why I was bringing up him, the resurrection, and everything like that, right, was it shows the cost of our free will. With our free will, we chose to have sin come into our lives. And with that, that's why when all the evil happened, thus, that's why God was doing these actions in Old Testament and, you know, in other times too. So it's like, you see it throughout scripture, and we believe that every decision God makes is good, right? It's because he loves us. That's the whole point of it, was to say, like, I'm going to protect my family, my children, by bringing or killing these people to protect them. That's why I brought up that analogy earlier. That's why I wanted to say, like, that's why.
So, I mean, I'm hearing it. So you would say, I mean, to follow through and just bring it a little further, you would say that a person who kills other people to defend other people, like in you know, like I say, you know, my family is going to be protected.
Yep.
Therefore, I'm going to go kill the neighbor.
I don't want to defend it.
No. I wouldn't. I mean, if they
go to hell,
hold on.
For some reason, Jesus decided to save me.
Let's mitigate the crosstalk a little bit more. So we got Brooklyn Lou just said something. Let's let TNC respond briefly, and then after that, I am going to try to wind things down.
When you mean like your neighbor, you're just saying like your neighbor, like he didn't do anything to you? That's just what I'm trying to ask.
No. Here's the thing. I started this with a very specific question. All right. I'm a regular guy. I'm looking at a God in the Bible who tells me not to kill, to be gentle and kind. I mean, that's like Bible. That's not, I'm not.
100%. Yep.
All right. And then I see other verses and other parts of the Bible where the same God tells me to kill entire populations of people, including children and animals.
No, hold on. He didn't tell you to do that.
Well, not me personally.
Let's
God never spoke to me, so he never told me to do anything. I'm talking about the Bible.
So I'm just you know why he said to kill them, right? You kind of understand that point, right?
They were bad people, and they were
Yes. So they were doing things that were basically an abomination in
yeah, but
God's
not.
eye.
I have a hard time, and this is
Cause
me.
I tried to draw all them verses that I could to justify what I did, but I couldn't. I
Mhm.
couldn't.
Yeah.
I could not justify what I did. I had to just. I said, "Well, God, I ought to go to hell," and for some reason, he decided that I should learn about Jesus Christ.
Well, can I'm sorry. What's your name? What's the atheist's name?
Brooklyn Lou is the atheist, and Darren.
It's Brooklyn, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Lou.
Okay.
And let me just say this. All right. I grew up in. I'm from Brownsville. Never ran, never will. All right. I didn't live a soft life. All right. I've known people who were thugs, murderers, gang members, and I've lived in neighborhoods where people were shooting people, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of resented this idea that I'm soft and I don't never been around the block. All right? I've been around the block plenty. All right.
I didn't assume that at all.
But never did I think that killing the people in the community and their children
that's
and dogs
completely
was
wrong.
somehow a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah, so what I was trying to get to was with those killings were reasons to protect their family. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to go down the street and go shoot my neighbor. No. What was going on was like I said earlier, let's just say this guy comes in with a knife and a gun himself, right? That guy's about to kill your family, right? With that being said, you're gonna retaliate with your own gun to protect yourself, right?
Not if I was a god, I wouldn't.
Let's don't jump there. Let's don't jump there because it can happen the other way, and God can still save you.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. This God is protecting people by telling other people to go kill other people's children. That's protecting them?
No. Remember what I said earlier about the children thing.
What about
we don't believe that the children that are in those abominable countries.
I don't believe in systematic theology. I don't believe that you can figure this shit out. I thank God
just a reminder. Let's mitigate the profanity, just because this is a fairly new channel that we're on, and so I just want to make sure that we're not.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So I'll just finish it real quick. Is that the reason why because that's what God is to us. God is just and fair. So with these children, they are in heaven right now, right? So beside that, I don't see no issue with that, right?
Okay, so at least to be consistent, because if that's the God, that's the God. I'm not. I'm going with that. So to be consistent, you would say that killing children can be a very loving thing to do. Correct?
No,
I mean, in my eyes, I see it as if
hold on.
Well, usually most of the time,
children will be a loving thing to do.
Yeah, I don't see it as like,
if God is gonna if God has the type of morality where what he does is always loving, if he has the type of morality which would suggest that killing is a bad thing, but in certain circumstances it is a good thing to kill children, then we have a problem. That's it.
Well, that's because you're building some kind of philosophical framework that ain't got nothing to do with reality.
Oh, that's real. It's very real.
So
killing people is a real thing. It's not fake, is it?
Read your Old Testament. They ain't nothing like that in the Old Testament that says God is like that, and there ain't nothing in the Old Testament that says God is logical. He presents himself in a very human way, so that we can understand him as humans.
Here's the point where we agree. I mean, I was asking to start this conversation. I was asking, as a normal person, I'm a human being. I'm not a god. I'm a person.
I'm with you all the way there.
And I read about a God who says, "Do not kill people," and then I read about a God who says, "Go out and kill people." So, and I'm sorry if you can't see any sort of contradiction there, but it's
Well,
very
you got to
obvious
look at
to
the
me.
different context, what he's doing in one place and what he's doing in another,
Yes.
and why he's doing. That's why you got a whole. That's why you got a whole 66 books there
Yes.
to
And
look at why he's figuring out.
that's why I'm
Now,
saying,
if you don't like it, fine.
that's why I
I'm
say
gonna-
it's situational ethics. It's not objective. It's subjective to what the God says to do. That's the
There you
meaning
go.
of the word
I've got no argument against that. Fine.
I'm gonna interject now, just because I have to like sort of shut things down fairly soon here. It's but I do want to give everyone. Why don't we do some wrap up closing statements? Now, I want to give a shout out to Christian Guitar, because they put in some really great comments that, you know, a lot of what we know about ancient biblical references to genocide are probably just hyperbole in some degrees. There is good archaeological evidence for that. I want to give a shout out to Darren Lute, because Darren, you've been putting a lot of things in the conversation in the chat that I really want to respond to, and I feel like your viewpoint has not been adequately represented, and I want to apologize for that. And I want to give a shout out, everyone. Don't forget, like all these channels, I'll make sure all the channels are represented in the discussion section. Everybody on the screen right now has really fantastic content, so let's open it up, and let's start with James, and then we'll just go down the rows, and we'll each give like maybe try to give like a 2-minute closing statement, and then we'll close it out after that. If that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, I want to say, like, on this subject right here, get into reality. I mean, you know, what is? I mean, I don't really know how to say it. I mean, there's different realities in different times. I mean, like in the time of Gandhi, what? Let's say God told Gandhi to do what Gandhi did. That was a reality. That, but it don't mean that what God told Joshua to do in Joshua's time was the same type of reality that Joshua could have did the same type of stuff. I don't know. It's like I just don't see that. I mean, I believe that you got to look at not just God and some type of modal arguments about how God is supposed to be. I don't see that. I see that you've got to look at the world and what God is doing at the time and what God is saying. And if you like him, all right, fine. I like him. I love the biblical God. And I've got a lot of different ways of expressing that you may like or may not like. But you know, and if you don't like him, then hell, fuck him. Go do your own way.
James, remember, let's really mitigate the profanity, because I think it does, like, the YouTube algorithm does not like the profanity, especially on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, so yeah,
we're just doing
then
closing
you go do
statements.
your
Maybe
then
like
you go do your own thing. You don't have to follow him.
All right, let's go to Eastern Thomas now, and just if you want to have a little closing statement.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on the show. I mean, I guess just to give my 2 cents really quickly, I mean, I would say in regards to why God commands some killings despite saying not to kill, I would say number one is the principle of double effect. In order for something to happen providentially in God's plan, there in some instances it's necessary that a lesser evil be allowed or permitted so that a greater good can be carried out. So that would be number one. And number two, I would also say right order. Order is another big thing. So when we take another human life, part of the reason it's so wrong is number one, because ultimately it's not for the good of that person. It's contrary to charity. That person has the ability to become united to God and live a God-filled life, and that person's dignity is hence cut short when their life is cut short. But it's also disordered in the sense that we didn't create that person. We didn't create life. Even if we have a child, we didn't conceive. We may have created that child, but that child is still a human being that has their own independence. And so because of that, it is against right order for us to kill that person. But if God says, I'm going to kill someone, it is not against right order, because he is the creator of all things, and because all things rest on his providence. Therefore, if he commands something for the greater good of his providence, it is not disordered. And since God acts through instrumental causes, he can give a task to whoever he pleases to ultimately carry out that task. So that's why I would say it wouldn't cause a contradiction. But with that being said, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Great. TNC, you wanna give a little closing statement?
Oh yeah,
And feel
sure.
free, everyone, to include plugs for your channel as well. You all have really great content.
Thanks, Tavo. I appreciate it. But yeah, it was a great discussion. I wasn't up here too long, but at the end of the day, it is, God does love each one of us. He does. And, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. He loves us all. And if you come to know the Lord Jesus, you may have eternal life too. And with this message, that's what we do. We want to just be clear representatives of his love and allow it to shine through us. I know you guys are atheists, but we do still love you. We still care for you. And the thing is, there's always going to be questions like that. And I hope that we try our best to help you guys understand these questions and continue to go from there.
Well said, TNC. Darren, you've got a lot of stuff to say, I'm sure. And I'm sorry that we haven't gotten to all your comments and questions. They've been really fantastic. So go ahead, Darren.
Oh, I enjoy just commenting as people are talking. It's fine. As far as God being love, there is no definition of love I can think of that the God described in the Christian Bible matches. I mean, you guys have to go through all sorts of mental gymnastics, even saying that he can commit any atrocity he wants as long as he's saying to do it because he's God and he can do whatever he wants with us. I mean, that's just, yeah. Anyways, as far as creation goes, you guys act as if God had no choice but to create the world the way he did. And with all the evil and everything, I mean, if you really think about it, before there was anything, if you really take the Christian mythology at heart and think that there was absolutely nothing but God at the very beginning, he had to actually create the concept of evil. He had to create the concept of redeeming and natural disasters and everything. Then he had to actually implement all these concepts he's created. And so when you say that sin entered the world when, Adam ate the fruit or whatever, that's because God created the concept of sin, created how it would react with the world, created what would happen if someone did something he said not to. And I don't know. I think the entire story is just ridiculous. And then he has to make the rules so that he requires a blood sacrifice just to forgive us, so that he has an excuse not to torture us for all eternity. I mean, that's just. Anyways, that's, I guess, what it is from someone looking outside in.
Darren, I think you have great comments. You've got great insights. I've learned a lot from you, and I hope we have more conversations just like this. And I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. And if you ever want to hash out all these issues, I'd love that. I think it'd be really educational for me. All right, well, let's go to Brooklyn Lou now.
Well, I appreciate you having this panel. So I want to say that. And I don't have any problems with anybody. All right. I have my own way of thinking, though. I don't think like everyone else or what someone tells me to think. And in my thoughts, if God loves me, all right, he can prove that. All right. And he could prove it to me directly. I don't need to read books. I'm sorry, but if a God is real, he can come to me and prove himself. He doesn't have to tell me to listen to a pastor, doesn't have to tell me to go to a priest. He can simply talk to me. All right. But this God that I'm aware of, all right, is one that when he says to go kill people, that is supposed to be an acceptable thing. And I don't get it. And I don't think I ever will. All right. I don't see how.
Hold on, I want to know who he's going to tell you to kill, because there's a lot of people I'd like to kill. He tells me not to.
And I'm talking about in the Bible.
I'm saying I could go get a gun right now. There's a lot of people I would like to kill, and he tells me not to. So what God are you talking about?
I'm talking about the God in the Bible.
That ain't the God in the Bible, because he's telling me not to go kill them people. I want to kill.
I do want to give Brooklyn Lou a chance to close out his thoughts, since we're kind of in the closing statements. So
I can, I mean, I could make up my own God, say, oh, God told me to do this and God told me to do that. The Bible is clear that killing people and children at a specific time that God says it's okay to do so is acceptable to God, and he doesn't consider that wrong.
Well, he never told me when that time is. When is that time?
Let's let Brooklyn Lou have some breathing room to like finish his thought and like have the thought. I understand, James, that you want we'll do this again. I promise we'll all.
I want to know when I can go kill people. Tell me when I can go kill people.
I'll send you an email.
I'll go kill them if you'll tell me when I can go kill them.
I don't think you should.
Yeah,
Well, neither does the Bible. So what are you talking about?
Let's give Brooklyn Lou a chance to finish, because we're over the 2 hour mark and we're getting close to 2 hours 30 minutes. But go ahead, Brooklyn Lou.
The Bible is very clear that God has told people to go kill other people. That is specifically clear in many, many parts of the Bible. Right now, I could understand that you might interpret that as love. I don't know how, but I'm not. And if God is mad with me because I don't consider that love, and he would be angry with me and he wants to kill me, so be it. But I mean, I'm not buying it. So that's the way I'll leave it. I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So I'd like to bookend my closing statement with the fact that, all five of you really have incredible content on your channels. I'm really privileged to be here with all of you, being able to hash this stuff out. This is like, I would pay paper money just to have an opportunity like this. So I hope that this happens again, and I respect all of you. And I hope that this is not just the end of this conversation, but the beginning of you all talking to each other. Because let me tell you, as much as I hope we've maybe like affected some minds and some spirits in this conversation, what I think is much more realistic, and what I hope is much more likely, is that you all will now form relationships with each other and talk to each other and really have some collaborations. I think that'd be really brilliant. Now, all right, we've talked about a lot of issues. As an atheist, I was really more of an ethical emotivist, because I just didn't see like ethics or morals existing in ways that were concrete, tangible, or calculable to me. So as I've moved towards theism, I've become much more of a deontologist. We've talked about, the tension that exists in human morality between deontology and consequentialism. And I think that's a tension that exists in the Old Testament, and it exists in our daily decisions. Like, I think the trolley example is a really nice example, right? You have to kill somebody to save 5 lives. Do you do it? Well, you can still do it and have that be a morally impactful action. Like, I think deontologically, you've still taken a life when you do that. And when you take that person's life, that's still something that is morally weighty. That person should still be mourned. You don't get to be glib about it. You don't get to walk away and say, well, I did my good deed for the day. You still should mourn that person. So that's the degree to which I am a deontologist. Now, when we started this whole conversation about 2 hours ago, somebody asked the question, what religion would you be if you were not your current religious belief? And my answer to that was Jainism. I think Jainism is maybe the most beautiful religion. It's the religion that advocates for harm the least, right? So here you have a scrupulous example in Jainism where you're not supposed to kill anybody, you can't take any life, and in fact, you can't even harm a microbial form of life. Now, to live out the Jainist ideal, you can't wear shoes, you can't walk, you can't really eat anything. Like, there's just no way to scale that up to a society, right? So Manilal Parekh is one of my favorite Jainist thinkers, and he actually converted to Christianity because what he reconciled is that we can try to be morally, deontologically appropriate and do the best job that we can. But we are left, whether you're Christian or atheist or living in a very materialistic world, we are left with these tensions, these conundrums between deontology and consequentialism. And the reason why he actually turned to Jesus is because he was like, Jesus is the only pathway where I know I'm going to do things that are wrong. I know I'm going to hurt people. I know I'm going to hurt the environment. I'm going to hurt microbes. I'm going to do damage to the world just by being here, just by making my way through adulting each and every day of my life. But the reason why he liked Jesus better than Jainism is because he realized that's the only pathway where you can reconcile the harms that you do throughout your life. So I think, Brooklyn Lee, you've brought up something that I really struggle with. I've really struggled with it. I mean, how do you reconcile the harm that's in the Bible? How do we reconcile, for that matter, the harms that we do each day when we live? How do we, I'm a vegetarian, but I still feel guilty for all the animals that I've eaten throughout my life. I think it's just a very difficult conundrum. It exists inside of Christianity, but it also exists outside of Christianity. So probably no easy answers in that little diatribe that I just gave. But I want to close my comments by again expressing that this has been a really great conversation. Each and every one of you is absolutely welcome to collaborate with me in the future, to do more videos with me, to do more stuff. I've been working super hard on my next iteration of the CTF argument. So having these one-off 2-hour chats has been really great for my channel's content. I want to really invite you all to, I will bookmark each and every person on the screen right now. So remind each of you listening to this conversation, please like this video, please subscribe to the channel. And not only that, but go to each of these folks. I guarantee I have learned something really important from each and every person who's on the screen with me right now, as well as Cajek, who was on the screen earlier. So I'm really grateful for everyone who's participated. Thanks so much for being engaged in this conversation. With that, I'm going to close it out and end the stream.
Can I say one thing?
Sure. Let me close it out, and then I'll keep the conversation going. Yeah.
I just want to apologize to everybody if I seem too forceful, because experientially, I've been in a lot of these situations that a lot of you guys are presenting as hypothetical, and so I don't want to seem like I'm overpowering or telling you guys that you're wrong about thinking the way you are. It's just that sometimes some of these stuff hit emotionally with me that they may not with the rest of you.
All right, I'm going to close out the stream, but don't worry, because we can keep talking. I'll just that way you all can trade contact information. But I'll end the stream. But thanks everyone for participating. Great conversation.
Okay, thanks.
God bless you.